Hello, everyone, and today I'm going to be doing my weekly 2024 presidential election prediction update. Now, as we can see on RCP averages, we could see Trump is up in the aggregate by about 0.4%, with both candidates actually falling in the aggregate quite significantly here. But you could see he is up by 0.4%, Trump sitting around 44.6, Biden sitting around 44.2. So it is around a tied national environment as of right now. And what I'm going to talk about here is Trump is still tied in the popular vote, which would give him an electoral college victory. And if you look at the five-way race, which is the real race, we could see Trump is up by 1.7 in that aggregate as well. And there everybody's saying, okay, well, Biden is, having a surge, but really all it is, it's just Democratic voters basically coming home towards Biden. It's not necessarily Trump is having a fallout with independents or with his own base. It's mostly Democrats coming home to Biden. However, the third party candidates are going to massively affect Biden's performance in the electoral college as well. You can see Biden is polling roughly around his approval rating here, and so is Trump. Trump is sitting around a 42% approval rating nationwide, and Biden is sitting in the low 40s. So this might actually end up being pretty accurate in terms of a final estimation. So for the sake of this video, since the approval ratings are basically around there and the approval ratings tend to correlate to the president's popular vote. So for example, Obama was around 50 something percent, 52. He ended up getting 51%. Trump was around 45%. He ended up getting 46%, more like 46.7%. So usually the popular vote does correlate to the approval rating of each candidate. And so right now, if Biden was sitting at this amount, let's say the national environment is like Trump plus two, right? If that were to be the case, Trump would be expected to win the electoral college. And I have this model here. Now, this model combines my model as well as another YouTuber's model, which is Gold Crown Politics. We should go subscribe to him. He's got some pretty cool analysis, but basically he has a certain model that kind of goes over the margins, the shift and the average shift from 2012 to 2020. You see how the states vote relative to the nation. You project the margin without demographics. The demographics come into play, and you have your final margin. The demographics shift according to the popular vote in this model. So I no longer have to replace the margins with a certain, I don't have to replace the margins every time I change the demographics or change the popular vote. The demographics kind of move with the popular vote based off of the 2020 results. So that's also going to help the model accuracy as well. And so right now, if I were to go ahead and put Trump at a +2 popular vote rating, so if he was at ahead by 2 points in the popular vote, he would pretty much be expected to win the electoral college, and we're going to be filling out every single state here. And so pretty much right now you can even see that, for example, here's the thing, guys. In 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, the polling averages in the midterms were less off, and during the presidential years, they tended to be more off. And the reason for this is because a lot of senior voters don't tend to get polled. They voted for Trump before both elections, even though the margin is narrowing. The polls still underestimate that margin, and that is the biggest demographic group in age that tends to vote, and that usually tends to be the highest turnout, you know, basically demographic that turns out during presidential years. And so if you're not polling them to the extent you need to, you're going to have a pretty severe over or underestimation of Trump in the polls. And so I'd say based off of that, Trump is probably sitting at around 3 to 4 points in the popular vote. So we could say he's probably sitting at a 3.5 percentage point victory in the popular vote. That's an 8 point swing from 2020, and that puts Trump very comfortably ahead in certain states, and we are going to be filling this out. You can see that the safe Republican states are going to be ruby red in this scenario. Trump probably ends up getting about 74, 73. He probably performs right around where he did in 2016, whereas Biden probably gets around the basically high 70 to high 60s. So, excuse me, low 70s to high 60s, somewhere around there would probably be his popular vote margin. And we could say in this scenario, Trump is probably getting close to winning Hispanics. He's probably making gains with black voters. The white vote is shifting a little bit to the right. And so, because of that, I could see Trump doing fairly well in the electoral college as of right now. And so pretty much these are the safe Republican states. For the safe Democratic states, we could say California would be there. We'll have to check Hawaii in a second, but it is still safe Democratic. And we could say that Maryland, DC, Massachusetts, and Vermont are safe Democrat, but that's actually about it for the completely safe Democratic states. Biden would only have those states as a plus 15 state in this scenario. If we go to the likely states for each candidate, we actually see that Florida is nearing a 15-point victory. If we pull up the 2020 results, we can see that Trump did pretty well in the state of Florida. He got Miami-Dade pretty close. He lost Pinellas and lost Duval, but he made massive gains in Miami-Dade. And I would expect him, if he's winning the state by 14, he's probably winning Miami-Dade by this margin. He's probably winning the county by about 6 to 8 points, and he's making gains in rural Florida, probably making really good gains in the Panhandle, getting Osceola and Orange County pretty close. Probably flips Seminole, probably flips Duval back, flips Pinellas back more than likely. And so that would give him a massive victory in the state. The next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Texas, which has Trump at a 15-point margin, which is interesting because usually you'd say, okay, well, Texas is probably going to vote to the right of Florida, for example. However, the thing about this is that Texas has the border crisis going on, and polling averages are affected in my average as well, and Hispanic trends and black trends as well. And so this election, Texas may in fact vote to the right of Florida by about a point or two, just because of the fact that there is a massive problem at the border going on. It is really affecting people overall. And right now, my model currently has Texas at a 15-point win. And if Trump basically makes gains in the border area where Biden had pretty poor turnout, and even in primary turnout, Trump won the state by about 13 points when you have raw primary turnout. And so Trump winning Texas by 15 in an R+3 national environment is not that unrealistic when you really look at the circumstances. And he shifted these, counties down here by massive, massive margins. And if he continues those trends due to the border crisis, I could expect him to flip Starr County, Duval County. He probably even gets close in Willacy County, and even Cameron, he gets those competitive, and he makes gains in a place like Webb County, Brooks County. He'll reverse the trends in some of these suburban areas. Even in like Harris County, he'll probably make some gains too. He'll probably make gains overall statewide and kind of kill the hopes of a blue Texas, at least for the cycle, and probably even the next couple cycles as well. And that puts Texas in the safe category in this scenario. As we keep going here, we could see Alaska is a safe state on the map. It is projected to be an 18-point win for Trump. I mean, if the environment is R+3, he probably is winning it by that amount. Washington, as of right now, is projected to be about a 10-point victory for the incumbent president. Oregon is expected to be an 8-point victory for the incumbent president as well. They are closer than what they were in 2020, since the popular vote is shifting massively to the right. However, they are still somewhat Democratic strongholds as of right now. Colorado seems to be pretty solid still for the incumbent. He's winning it by about 5 points in this scenario. If we look at the state of Illinois, Trump is only losing there by about 7 points. He probably makes massive gains with African American voters. I expect him to do a lot better in Cook. He probably ends up touching, the mid 30s, almost probably even 40%. He'd probably get about 38, 39% at that point. He'd probably make gains in rural Illinois as well, which would have really help him narrow the margin down from 2020. If we were to keep looking at these demographics, we could see Virginia is a state that Trump is actually barely even losing here. He lost it by 10 points here, but if he's making gains in some of like, northeastern, Virginia, and kind of doing really good in the rurals, and even flipping like Virginia Beach, or doing pretty well, and even like James City, he probably ends up getting the state pretty close. Now, do I think the model is going to reflect a till margin? I'd say he probably ends up losing it by like a point in the scenario. He probably narrowly ends up losing it in an R+3 environment. I think Virginia is too left trending as of right now. And so I'd say that's about what we're looking at in terms of a victory for Biden in Virginia. He probably narrowly wins the state in an R+3 environment. I'd say the likely categorization for Illinois and Colorado, as well as Oregon and Washington, are pretty accurate in terms of a Trump+3 national environment. If we look at these states, in the Northeast, we could see Connecticut and Delaware be, double digit victories, but under 15 points. Same thing for Rhode Island and New Jersey. Now, the polls in New Jersey, there's one poll that came out that is having the state significantly close. In this scenario, you can see that New Jersey is about a 5 point victory for Biden, almost under the lean category, which would be pretty insane in this election cycle. And if we look at a state like New York, Trump is only winning or losing it by about 12 points in this electoral college scenario. Now, again, he is going to make gains here. I just can't see him winning the state this cycle. Even if, he does go to jail, I would still think it's probably really close. I mean, if he does go to jail, he'd actually have a realistic chance at actually flipping it. But I think in terms of right now, he probably still needs to work on the, inner city area. That's really going to stop him from winning the state overall. It's not going to shift us right as many people are thinking. Even in a Trump+3 national environment, he is still only losing it by 12 points, but it is not enough to win the state overall. Maine's first, we can see right here, would end up being a 12-point victory. Maine's second is a 18-point victory. And if we look at the at large, he's barely only losing the state by 5 points. We can see that Maine is still pretty democratic here, mainly because of the white vote really shifting the state to the left. And white votes, the white voters are trending pretty left this cycle. They're going to shift right, but compared to the national average, they're going to trend pretty democratic. And so I'd say that's probably going to be the case as of right now. And we have the major swing states left up on the board. We can see New Mexico even left up for grabs. And we'll go to the first state here, which is going to be the state of North Carolina. Now, North Carolina is projected to be about a 10-point victory as of right now. And what's actually funny, guys, is if we go over here and we look at my turnout model, it is pretty interesting. But if we were to put the popular vote at a pretty high margin for the incumbent or the former president in terms of the popular vote, Trump probably does end up winning the state of North Carolina by a lot. I have individual models for each state as of right now. And so if Trump was winning the popular vote by about 3 points, and that shifts the average by about 8 in his favor, as of right now, we could see the final margin ends up being R+12 in the state. And this model basically tracks all the states by county and looks at turnout and things like that. These will be updated in the future, but it is probably a pretty good look to see what we could be looking at. My data analyst currently has the state at R+9 with his model as well. If we were to go to his as well, we can see that as of right now, he currently has the state at around a 9-point victory for Trump. As of right now, it is currently a 9.1 victory for Trump. He's not predicting the popular vote, however, he is predicting by individual state. But we could see all of the data does point to that. And North Carolina tends to be somewhat underestimated in polling data. Even if you look at the five-way race in general election polling, it is very interesting. But if we go to North Carolina, he's already leading by 4 points in a head-to-head matchup. And if we go to the five-way, he's leading by 6.3. And if the polls are off by what they were in 2020, which was a couple points, it was like 2 or 3 points net favor towards Biden, he would be winning the state by about 9 points. So all the data that we have shows that Trump is going to be winning the state by about 9 points as of the current estimations in the popular vote as of right now, as well as the models that we have. So I'd say that I'd be pretty comfortable, if Trump is winning the popular vote by 3, I'd be pretty comfortable putting the state in that category as of right now. So for the first major swing state, he's going to be winning it by about 9 to 11 points as of right now. We're going to be going to Georgia, which my model currently shows that Georgia is a 8-point win for Trump, almost a 9-point win for him. If we go to the turnout model here and we apply a 3-point national popular vote lead, that swings the popular vote by about 8 points in favor of Trump. It is probably 8.5 actually, if I'm really thinking about it. But if we go down here, we can see that he is winning it by about 4 points in this model. We could see the average error is not going in any direction. So his margin may be over or underestimated, but it is close to a likely margin. And if we look at Georgia as of right now in polling data, when it comes to my data analyst looking at it, I believe he has it. I don't think it's here, but he has it at around a 3 point victory as of right now. The polling aggregate in RCP has the state currently has a 4.2 victory for Trump. And if we look at the five-way race, he is ahead by 6 points. So if the polls are off by what they were in 2020, which was about a point or two, either in favor of Trump or in favor of Biden, depending on what polling website you're looking at, he is going to be winning the state by over 5 points in an R+3 national environment. So this 8 point margin that we are looking at may not necessarily be that off at the end of the day. And so right now, I currently have Trump winning Georgia by 6 to 8 points as of right now. If we keep going, I'm going to touch New Hampshire really quick just so we can kind of get that one out of the way. I have less data. I have not done a model for it, and my data analyst has not completed a model for it yet. However, we do have the margin here, which as of right now is currently actually is tilting towards Trump in an R+3 national environment. But I'd say, based out of my estimation, I would probably still put it in the tilt Democratic category, possibly even in the lean Democratic category. I'd say Biden probably wins it by 2 in the scenario, just because of the fact that it is a white state and it is trending very left. White voters are going to trend left nationally. So even if Trump is winning the popular vote by an extensive amount, it is mainly due to gains in Texas and Florida, as well as New York and California, not really so much New Hampshire. So I'd say New Hampshire probably still votes for Biden by a couple of points in an R+3 national environment. Now, when we come up to these other states, if we look at Pennsylvania, for example, which is crucial for Trump winning 270 electoral votes, this is the last state he would need to win the electoral college. If we go over here to my model and we actually look at a 3 point lead in the popular vote, as of right now, Trump would be ahead in the state by about 2 points. And if we look at my model, he is currently ahead by 8 points. And if we look at my data analyst analysis in the state, you would see that roughly he is performing at about, let's look at the model, he is at a 5 point margin according to here. So the data kind of varies, but when you average it out, he is winning it by about 5 points. And if you look at it, honestly, if Trump is really doing well with rural voters and Biden just kind of really just doesn't do well with African Americans, and Trump's really winning the popular vote by 3 points, Biden's African American turnout is probably really bad in Philadelphia. He probably only wins Philadelphia by 30 to 40 points in the scenario. He's for sure losing Scranton. He's losing Monroe County, losing Lehigh County. Dauphin County would be gone. Central County would be gone. Allegheny would probably be within 10 points. Erie would definitely be a strong win for Trump as well. Bucks County would flip as well. So I'd say that Trump would have a pretty big state victory overall in the scenario. And if Trump's winning the popular vote by 3, R+5.5 Pennsylvania is not that out of the picture. And so as of right now, I have Pennsylvania at a 5 point victory for Trump, which easily gives him the electoral college in this prediction. If we keep going to a state like Arizona, we'll pull up my data analyst model here, but we can see that he currently has the president losing the state by about 4 points in a head-to-head matchup. And if we look at my model as of right now, and we go to Arizona and we have the national environment at a 3 point win for Trump, he is currently losing the state by about 14 points in my model, which seems like a very, very weird outlier. Do I think Trump's going to win Arizona by 14? No, I don't think that's going to be the case. The average error here is really high. So even if we were to get rid of this, Trump would still be winning the state by about almost 5. So that is definitely pushing the state quite a bit to the right, I'd say. But even here, he's winning it by about 4. And if we look at the polling data once again in the state, if we go to Arizona, he's leading by 4.5. And if you look at the five-way race, he's leading by 6. And if the polls are off by 1 to 2 points in the state, or even 3, he's losing it by 7 to 9 points in an estimated projection based out of historical polling error, and it being in the likely category may not be impossible. The model currently has it as an 8-point victory for Trump, especially if you have things like the border crisis really affecting the state. It's really, really going to be a problem for Republicans overall, or excuse me, Democrats overall, to even have a chance at winning the state this cycle as of right now. Nevada is a state that really is going to be a problem for Republicans. As of right now, I'd say they're basically DOA in the state. Currently, Trump is ahead by 8.5 in my model. And again, polling data shows that he's ahead by 3.2. In the five-way race, he's ahead by 5.5. And if he gets underestimated by a point or two, which he usually does in the swing states, he loses it by about 7 points. And that's with the third-party aggregate. And so him losing it or him winning by 7 points in the state is not that out of the picture if you really think about it, based out of current polling data and historical error. And if you look at the model for Nevada as of right now that I currently have it pulled up here, if I were to put the popular vote at a 3 point lead for Trump, he would be winning the state by about 6 points according to my model. And my data analyst, let's see if he has Nevada already completed. It seems like he does not have Nevada completed, but really, if Trump ends up just doing really good with Hispanics and potentially even wins Clark County, which would be pretty difficult, but I think he's going to get it under 5, and he's probably going to flip Washoe back. And so, if he's able to get this really close, he could potentially win the state by quite a big of a margin. So, I'd say a 6 to 9 point victory in Nevada is on the table as of right now. If we were to go to New Mexico, we can see that state is actually tilting towards Trump in this scenario. And honestly, I'd probably give it to him in this scenario. I actually think that Trump would be winning New Mexico in an R+3 national environment, because you gotta think about it. This cycle, if Trump wins the popular vote by a lot, his Hispanic margins and his African American turnout's gonna be really high. And even though the white vote's gonna trend to the left nationally, the problem with New Mexico is that there is so many Hispanic voters there that even if they are a little bit more left leaning and the white vote's more left leaning, if Trump's winning the popular vote by that amount, he probably is making gains in the southern western part of the country, and he probably does end up flipping New Mexico by a very, very close margin at the end of the day. So as of right now, my current prediction, I do have New Mexico flipping towards Trump as of right now. And we have the last couple of states here. We're going to be going to Nebraska second, which I will just fill out here according to the model. Right now, the model actually has it as a lean Republican victory for Trump as of right now. In the last three states, we're going to be covering this here. Michigan, if we look at the polling data, is actually the best state for him in the head-to-head matchups. In the five-way race, he goes down to 2.3, but if the polls are off by 4 points like they were in 2020, and even more than that in 2016, he's winning the state by 6 to 8 points, and the model currently has him winning it by 7 as of right now. And if you look at the county map here, if Trump is making gains in the city area, winning Macomb by like 15, doing really well in rural, Michigan overall, I wouldn't be surprised by a big margin like that, especially if Trump's really looking good in exit polling data on election night. I would not be surprised by that whatsoever. And he's performing pretty well here as of right now. Wisconsin would also be a likely margin of victory. Again, even here, if you were to have it as an 8 point win, he's winning it by 3. So this is a little bit iffy. The state average model for Michigan is kind of looking a little weird. This I think would actually have him losing it, or no, he's still winning it, but it's by a closer margin. But if we look at my data analyst model, we'll also see that over here, let's go to Michigan, we could see that Trump is projected to be winning it by a tilt margin. However, the thing is that this also accounts for the polling average. You could see over here, Michigan's polling average does get accounted here. And so if we are really looking at that, for example, it is going to be a pretty interesting, it's going to be pretty interesting for him overall. It's going to be pretty interesting. And so at the end of the day, if Trump is really performing this well in the national popular vote, he is going to be winning the state by a high single digit margin. And the final state on the map is Minnesota. And Minnesota on the model is currently projected to be a 1.2 percentage victory. Now, This one is really, really tricky because he has technically been underestimated here before, but the problem is it's just really, really challenging to see if he really would actually end up winning the state because there is a lot of room for him to grow in rural Minnesota, but this city area is just trending to the left off a cliff. And so it may be a problem for him. Right now, he's currently down in the aggregate by 2.3%. So if there was a 3 point polling error, you could say he wins it, but I would say as of right now, even if Trump wins the popular vote by 3, he probably narrowly ends up losing Minnesota in this matchup. And yes, New Mexico would probably flip red before Minnesota because Hispanic and African American voters are going to trend to the right faster than white voters. And that's why this result would happen. So currently, right now, I have Trump winning the Electoral College 318 to 220. From my last prediction, New Mexico is the only flip, including Nebraska's second congressional district, with Minnesota being really, really competitive. So if you guys did enjoy this analysis, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure to hit the post notification bell, and make sure to follow the Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. And I will see you guys very, very soon.